had a big week on Spicer & Company. A lot of subjects, a lot of great guests. We talked about Michael Flynn, the bombshell developments that happened in his case. We talked about reopening the country and the House of Representatives. It's interesting. They're not here this week and the Senate is. We talked about what's going on with China, how we have to hold them accountable. We had Kellyanne Conway talking about working with governors. And we had a couple light segments with Scott Adams, the inventor, creator of Dilbert, and Eddie Gossage from the Texas Motor Speedway about a really fascinating way that they're celebrating graduations down there. But I want to kick it off with my old place of work. Kayleigh McEnany had her second press conference. You gotta see this. Check this out.
Well, there's so much to talk about. Sean, Kayleigh McEnany, that clip that you showed at the beginning, I gotta see more.
All right, let's show everybody the entire clip that I mentioned at the top.
In a previous life, before you were press secretary, you worked for the campaign, and you made a comment, I believe, on Fox, in which you said President Trump will not allow the coronavirus to come to this country. Given what has happened since then, obviously, would you like to take that back?
Well, first, let me note, I was asked a question on Fox Business about the president's travel restrictions. I noted what was the intent behind those travel restrictions, which is we will not see the coronavirus come here. We will not see terrorism come here, referring to an earlier set of travel restrictions. I guess I would turn the question back on the media and ask similar questions. Does Vox want to take back that they proclaim that the coronavirus would not be a deadly pandemic? Does the Washington Post want to take back that they told Americans to get a grip, the flu is bigger than the coronavirus? Does the Washington Post likewise want to take back that our brains are causing us to exaggerate the threat of the coronavirus? Does the New York Times want to take back that fear of the virus may be spreading faster than the virus itself? Does NPR want to take back that the flu was a much bigger threat than the coronavirus? And finally, once again, the Washington Post, would they like to take back that the government should not respond aggressively to the coronavirus? I'll leave you with those questions, and maybe you'll have some answers in a few days. Yep.
Thank you very much. Just you were prepared for that.
Did you catch that? You came prepared. Oh my goodness. Sorry that got you questions to get through. Loved how she dealt with that. Next up, Michael Flynn. Huge week with this. I'll show you a little bit about how we covered that.
Needs to happen is real accountability. And frankly, I think people need to go to jail for what happened. Devin Nunes, my colleague from California, has been beating this drum for years. He started digging in and exposing the fact that you had what we call dirty cops in the FBI. I mean, I love our law enforcement agencies. The FBI is one of the vital agencies to keep our country safe. And yet there were some bad apples over there, and they need to be brought to justice, Sean. If you look at what they did, you identified some of the things they did to entrap General Flynn. They tried to do this, by the way. Comey tried to do this to Donald Trump himself. People inside of the FBI, and it probably went all the way up to the top, that were plotting to undermine the elected president of the United States. That shouldn't happen to anybody from any party, and everybody ought to be outraged, no matter what your affiliation is, that you've got these agencies. This is America. I mean, this might happen in third world nations, and we would decry that. These people need to be held accountable. We know some of the names, by the way. This starts with Strzok and Page. I don't know if it goes all the way up to Comey, but boy, it sure looks like it does when they make reference to the 7th floor. That's the leadership at the FBI. Did it even go higher than that? I don't know. But the Durham investigation has been digging into this as a criminal investigation for a long time, but enough's enough. We know enough now to bring charges. I want to see the Department of Justice start holding people accountable. And frankly, people need to go to jail so that everybody else, by and large, good people at the FBI know that this won't happen again to anybody else.
Absolutely. This is a great day for America in terms of legitimacy coming back through the Department of Justice. And so what happened here is that this was an independent investigation that Attorney General Bill Barr ordered. And let's remember, this wouldn't have happened to expose all of this corruption if Donald Trump had not been elected president. And so what happened...
For a second, because all the media is focused on, did Flynn lie? Did he not lie? Why did he lie? Whatever. But let's walk this back for 1 second. The whole reason there was an investigation at first was whether or not there was collusion with Russia. Okay? I just laid out that whole case from Obama officials that say, I saw no evidence there was collusion. Okay, therefore, that should have put a pin in it, full stop. But no, they kept going and they said, keep the case open. We want to go after, interview Flynn and, quote, according to those records that we now know, say, let's see if we can catch him lying. So they corner him into a thing, they get him lying, then all this snowballs out, Trump fires Comey, and that spawns the Mueller report. So, KT, if none of this had happened in the first place and they hadn't jammed him and they knew full well there wasn't any collusion, there would be no Mueller report, correct?
No, I think they would have found something else. Whatever it was, they would have made it up. They made most of this up, right? It turns out that the Steele dossier on which the Mueller report was supposedly based, which was the first thing that led to the FISA warrants and the wiretapping and all that, they knew it was fake. They didn't care it was fake. They just went ahead with it anyway. And I think that the whole effort was not General Flynn or myself or others. I mean, we're collateral damage in this. The real effort was to get to Donald Trump, to get to a president they didn't like. They wanted to reverse the election results of 2016, and they couldn't do it in any other way than to try to discredit President Trump.
Obviously, another big thing right now that we're dealing with is how to open up the government, how to get back to work. This gets touched on. We've got a doctor, Congressman Steve Scalise, Majority Whip, Congressman Mike Waltz, Kellyanne Conway, all talking about this. Take a listen.
The curve. We're flattening the curve so the healthcare system is not overwhelmed. We're not changing the area under the curve, which means that the area under the curve is the number of people who are going to be infected. We can't change that. We have to keep going, and they believe we have about 60% of the population has to get infected for us to get herd immunity to get control over this disease. So it's going to happen. We need to just slow it down so our healthcare system isn't overwhelmed and we can care for the people as well as we've been doing.
Again, whether you test or not, most people don't want to take the test knowing that you can take it. We need to get more widespread testing, but at the same time, there's an ability to get this done.
Right, but Congressman, here's the thing. It's not just you guys, right? You bringing back your staff, the Capitol Police, the stenographers, everyone. Wouldn't it be good to make sure that we knew that when you guys came back that you were tested and everyone was safe? On its face, it's available. It seems to me that it's a pretty simple proposition. Take the test. It's for the safety not just of you guys, but of everyone around you, and it gives them peace of mind.
Yeah, and look, there's a big debate right now about how widespread testing needs to be for a lot of people. And again, I was just talking to a colleague of mine from Georgia because they just started reopening everything last week. And they're having really good success with people being safe. And they have testing facilities. And I've heard most of those testing facilities have hardly had anybody that wanted to come in and get tested. But it's available in some of those communities. At the end of the day, what we need to be focused on is laying out safe protocols for people.
Well, we're still waiting on it. I was kind of hoping their statement today would lay out their plan. Really, just a week ago, they told us we would be back in D.C. today. And then less than 24 hours, they changed their mind. So we anticipate coming back next Monday. But as the Democrat majority has told us before and has acted, we don't know. I firmly believe that they want to negotiate a package that is going to be negotiated at the leadership level. They want to propose a Democrat liberal wish list that's going to do things like take over our nation's election process. And they want to be able to bring everybody back to vote up or down on that bill. That's not how Congress should operate. If you want to watch how Congress operates, get our committees working again in a bipartisan way.
Sure, we were really pleased today to welcome Governor Abbott and members of his Texas government here to the White House. That's probably the fifth or sixth governor, Democrat and Republican, has visited in just the last 2 weeks. Sean, you're absolutely correct. So we know governors want to take the lead. They've made that very clear. We're up to 40 governors who have said that they have actual plans and an intent to reopen their state's economy. You have some governors, like the 5 who wrote an op-ed just this week in the Midwest saying they never completely shut down their state's economies. So all the infection rates obviously haven't been the same. There's no one size fits all. But as we gradually and safely reopen, the president has made clear he wants these governors to continue to consult with him, the vice president, members of the task force, which include economists, doctors and scientists, and other cabinet members. But at the same time, he knows that the governors know best which parts of the state have outbreaks, which ones have higher infection rates. Do they all have the surge capacity you would need if, God forbid, there was a new outbreak? Do you have the PPE and the ICU bed capacity, the ventilators, the healthcare personnel? We're up to 40 governors for a reason. those governors, right, left, and center, understand how important it is to not have some national shutdown. That causes its own ill effects. We're very concerned about what we see in the data, an increase in mental health challenges, in child and spousal abuse, and drug abuse, people feeling isolated and economically desperate. And so we see a spike up in these behaviors. There's been a 24% increase in alcohol sales, for example. And so even if people are using that legally or illegally, if they're younger, the fact is that, as the president says, you can't have the cure be worse than the disease. But this president continues to fight alongside the governors on the dual medical and financial crises. And we're very happy these governors, they're either visiting here and talking about it directly with the cameras on, Sean, or they're presenting their plans to us. Nobody will be turned away if they want to present their plan for reopening to us. Those guidelines are there. They were released on April 16th. There are 3 phases for reopening, and we would commend everybody's attention to it. It's a public document.
Well, these days you can't have a week without talking about China and its role and how we hold them accountable. This is how we address it.
Sean, a lot of those tensions are the result of Chinese aggression or Chinese efforts against American citizens. So it's true that unfortunately China has leverage over the entire world right now because they have so much market share in things like basic drugs or medical equipment. That's a reminder why in the long term we cannot allow this situation to continue. We have to bring back more of that manufacturing, not only in drugs and medical equipment, but other critical industries like telecommunications or other high-tech fields. We also have to make sure that we continue to find or search for the origins of this virus and that we hold China accountable, whether it's opening up American courts to those who were harmed by this virus so they can seek redress from China, or ensuring the World Health Organization actually acts for world health and not for world politics, or any number of other measures that are necessary to check Chinese ambitions that have been long-standing and all directed towards replacing the United States as the world's preeminent power.
Why are not more countries willing to band together? Has China got that much leverage on all of us?
Well, it's a good question. China does have a lot of leverage on these other nations, and they have threatened trade sanctions against states that criticize them in even the mildest way. But I think the situation is changing. After the New York Times ran that story on it was an EU report on disinformation about the virus. There was a lot of criticism of the European of EU management for doing that. I also note that last weekend the Australian press put out news of a Five Eyes report. This was an intelligence report, an international report by the US, UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, that highly criticized the way China has handled the virus, for covering up what happened, and for taking steps that basically robbed the world of crucial time that could have saved hundreds of thousands of lives.
Next, let's see how the creator of Dilbert is viewing the current events. You know, Scott, the funny thing is, a lot of times when you see a movie on television or a movie like you see Veep and you go, oh my God, sometimes it can't write itself the way things are going in our political thing. There are days when I read your strip and I think to myself, it's stating the obvious, which is what's going on right now. How often when you write that, is it literally based on the events that are going on in politics or in society?
Well, today, for example, within the last hour, the comic I wrote but haven't yet drawn is about somebody who had a important task force that they disbanded. And when they were challenged for disbanding it, he said, no, we didn't disband it. Yeah, we changed some of the people and we refocused the mission, but we didn't disband it. It's just different people doing different stuff. And so when I'm watching the news, it's pretty much a constant fire hose of material for Dilbert.
This is really cool. You're going to want to watch this. Eddie Gossage, who heads up the Texas Motor Speedway, it's got the biggest Jumbotron in the country. I learned that. Anyway, 36 classes are graduating at the Texas Speeder Motorway in a way that you never thought possible. Watching it. Well, if you're graduating from high school or college this spring, the pandemic has almost certainly canceled your commencement ceremony. But Texas Motor Speedway is coming to the rescue for some high school seniors. This is what we're used to seeing at the Speedway. That's right, 180,000 fans cheering their favorite NASCAR driver speeding along at nearly 200 miles an hour. Instead, the Speedway is going to host graduation ceremonies for 23 area schools, where the graduates are going to feel like winners picking up their diplomas in Victory Lane. Well, joining us is the man behind the plan, the president of the Texas Motor Speedway, and today's good guy, Eddie Gossage. Eddie, thanks for being here.
Well, thanks for having me, Sean. Appreciate it very much.
All right, so tell me, how did this come about? I mean, this is really cool. These guys were probably bummed out they couldn't graduate. Now they're graduating in style. And not only are they coming into Victory Lane, but you guys have the biggest television in the country. They're called Big Hoss, and they get to have their graduation, their diploma pickup on the screen.
Well, that's right. You know, I mean, every graduate wants to do it the right way. And unfortunately, with the pandemic, so many students are not going to be able to do that this year. And that's a shame for the class of 2020.
Well, we had another great week on Spicer & Company. We already have a bunch of great guests and a bunch of cool topics to cover next week. Watch it every night at 6 o'clock. Set your DVR so you never miss it. If you do, well, you can watch it again at 9. Either way. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.